Hi, I'm Charles Linden, Director of Linden Tree Education. The question I'm asked more than any other is, why did you start TLM? Why did you found Linden Tree Education? And what got you started on this road to helping people with anxiety? And the answer is so simple. When I look back to 1996, after 22, 23 years of constant anxiety, panic attacks, agoraphobia, OCD, health anxiety, eating disorders, low mood, and all of the symptoms that people associate with anxiety, including things like derealisation and depersonalisation, and I had a metaphobia as well, which is fear of vomiting. So I really was what you describe as a physiological and psychological wreck. I became very agoraphobic, hardly ever left the house, and if I did leave the house it was under duress and it was to get to a medical appointment or something like that, but generally I didn't leave the house. So I was feeling incredibly desperate, isolated. I'd had CBT, I'd had NLP, I'd had hypnosis, I'd had all sorts of weird and wonderful therapies that proved completely ineffectual. I was on medication, I was taking antidepressants, even antipsychotics at one point, which I was told would flatten out my anxiety levels. And it was horrendous. It was just like a prison sentence. I hardly ever left the house. I didn't have a career. My relationship was in tatters. And since I was, I don't know, 4 or 5, I'd had chronic OCD and panic attacks. So everything I did was marred by this horrendous feeling of impending doom. And I'm sure you know how that feels. So why did I start TLM? What spurred me on to do this? Well, in 1996, I completely recovered from my anxiety disorders. Excuse me. And at that point, I realised that if I didn't do something to help people like myself to become anxiety-free, I would be doing myself a massive disservice, because I wouldn't be doing something true to what I believed was the solution. And also, there are millions of people suffering from these disorders around the world, and now we help children of as little as 4 years of age, and we've helped people up to 94 years of age. So it affects people of all ages, all backgrounds, all walks of life, and it's indiscriminate in every way, and I believe we stopped that. So when I recovered, aged 26, 27, I decided that I was going to write down what I did and give it to a few people, which is exactly what I did, and they started to benefit. And from those few people, they started coming back to me and saying, well, what would you do if you went to a wedding, or what would you do if you went to a job interview and this happened, or what would you do about this symptom, or what do you think this symptom is? And through my experiences as a sufferer, I started to explain to these people exactly why they were suffering in that way, and exactly what it was that was causing those physiological and psychological responses. And as my knowledge started to grow, I started to research more about why what we were doing was working. And lo and behold, we found out that the methodology behind the Linden method and the retreats and everything that we do actually complies to core psychological science, to neurophysiology and the psychology of anxiety disorders. And we discovered that the reason that this was working, and it would work for me and it was working for other people when other things had failed, was because those other things don't actually address the core science. What we've realised is that the talking therapies and all of the medication therapies and NLP and things like that, they don't address the cause. They address, in some way, the symptoms. So they try to get you to change the way you think, to try to get you to perceive yourself differently, perceive your situations differently, to use tactics to change your thoughts, to change your emotional responses. And the problem is, those things cannot change your emotional responses. Anxiety disorders happen because you have no conscious control over your emotional responses, or any other response within your subconscious mind. You can't control your endocrine system. You couldn't suddenly change the levels of progesterone or testosterone or estrogen in your bloodstream or in your body. You can't change the amount of adrenaline you release. You can't change the way you digest food. You can't increase or decrease your heart rate by thinking. It's absolutely physiologically impossible, because all of those things, those systemic things, those subconscious things that happen whether you're awake or you're asleep, cannot be changed consciously. Because if they could, and the reason that they're locked away so deeply in your subconscious is that if you could change them in some way consciously, you'll be messing about with the core electronics and physiology of your very being. It would be like reaching inside a fantastic brand new Ferrari and twiddling a few knobs. You don't know what it's going to do, and you don't know how it's going to do it. You cannot affect your subconscious autonomic responses through conscious thought. Nobody can. People say that hypnosis can change your emotional responses. It can't. It doesn't reach the level of the subconscious mind. It's very superficial. It reaches your conscious mind. It's a form of relaxation, but it cannot change neurological responses in your subconscious mind. It's a nonsense, and neither can medication. If that were the case, we could fix everything. You know, you could change the way somebody's heart beats, you could change the way that they breathe, you could change the way that they digest food, the way that they produce various chemicals and hormones in their body. It's just not possible. So using talking therapy and those sorts of things to try to adjust the way you work subconsciously is like somebody going to a doctor's in the menopause and saying, look, you know, my estrogen and progesterone levels have changed, and they give you some kind of meditation device or send you for hypnosis. Or it's impossible. You cannot change those things through conscious thought. And that's why you and millions of other people around the world are having these treatments and nothing's happening. Yes, it's a nice chat. Yes, it can be reassuring. You know, it can be relaxing in some cases. But has it cured your high fear condition, your anxiety disorder? Has it affected you emotionally long term? Have you been cured? Are you now anxiety disorder free? And I think you'll find the answer is no. And I had tens of thousands of pounds worth of therapies. I had to sell my house to fund it. I lost my house because of it. And I see this every single day. Our practitioners sit there on the phones, in the retreats, at the workshops, and they hear these same stories every day. Nothing changes. Why doesn't it change? Because the core science used by these treatments that you've had don't align with anxiety and the activation of fear in the subconscious mind. They just don't. They're nothing to do with it. And that's what I realised. And when I realised that, I changed my life in days. And then I went on to help other people. Over about 6 to 12 months, I went from helping 6 people to 10 people to 30 people to 50 people. And then when it got to about 1,000 people, it was overwhelming. So I had to change my career. I gave up my job in television and I started helping people full time. And then it became even more overwhelming because there was just so many people. So I hired a psychologist to come and help me, and she sat and she did the support and the emails and the phone calls with me. And then I hired a second psychologist, and then we got on board some counselling psychotherapists. And now we're a team of counselling psychotherapists and psychologists working to support people to do exactly what it is that your brain and body need in order to recover. So if you're sat at home, like a lady I spoke to this morning through social media, if you're sat at home not able to leave the house and you've got panic disorder, agoraphobia, you've been told that you've got PTSD, you're having 8 to 10, 12 panic attacks a day, you're calling ambulances, you're on medication, your mood's getting lower, your environment's getting smaller, and now you're housebound and you don't leave the house at all, and you've given up your job and your family have disowned you, and this is a genuine story from this morning on social media, you don't need to be that way. Because I was that way once, and I've seen tens of thousands of other people who are exactly the same as that. And if they do, very simply, without leaving the house, if they start doing what their brain and body needs in order to reduce your anxiety levels and take you back from disorder, back to order, back to normal fear responses, you're cured. It'll go. I've never seen a case of it not working. Since 1997, we've been doing this. We've helped well over 200,000 people. I have never seen a human that cannot recover from anxiety. And we help people of 4 years of age, 5 years of age, who've got chronic anxiety, school phobia, even OCD, agoraphobia, panic attacks, 4 years of age. And we show their parents how to do exactly what they need to do in order to manipulate their child to do those things that change those subconscious responses and remove the anxiety disorder. And that's exactly how it works. It is much easier to do TLM than it is to do what you normally do every day to manage your anxiety. In fact, when you start and you watch the videos, you'll feel so reassured and so compelled to continue that the excitement will build in you and it will reduce the anxiety straight away. Because as excitement and happiness builds, your anxiety has to drop because you can't have two conflicting emotions in one brain. It's that simple. And you will see why it works, how simple it is, and why it is that we have the reputation of curing so many people. You'll absolutely love this. So just try it. Just try it. And if you don't like it, you can always get a refund. But I'm pretty certain that you won't, because most people don't. And if you go to our website, you can see the testimonials and videos, thousands of them from people who've done this and absolutely love it. So don't believe for a second, because you've been having CBT or NLP or hypnosis, or you've been going for talking therapists or seeing a counsellor, or any other things that you've done, even online techniques, anything that is CBT based, anything that is cognitive therapy based will fail, because the therapy isn't focused on the solution, on the recovery. It isn't targeting the part of the brain that needs to be targeted to help you to recover. And that's why it's failing. So please, 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 as an ex-sufferer to a current sufferer, don't get despondent. Don't feel down. Don't feel that everything is over and that you've tried everything and everything has failed. You haven't tried everything. LAR therapy, the therapy behind TLM and our retreats and everything that we do, is the only accredited, dedicated anxiety recovery therapy. The only one. And I know that if you do it, you will be absolutely overwhelmed and so incredibly happy with the results you see. So just try it. And if it doesn't work, get a refund. But I know you won't be doing that. I know you'll be giving us a testimonial, because most people do. Just try it and see what you think. Take care. Bye-bye.